Hello and welcome back. Today I want to talk about the whole concept of loud pipes saving lives, and I don't really want to get overly into the controversy of whether or not they do or they don't, because I have bikes with stock exhaust that are quiet. I have bikes with loud exhaust. I think it's fun to have a loud exhaust sometimes, and sometimes I like a more stealthy bike where you know, potentially if you're going to be trying to ride off-road maybe, and you don't want to make a lot of noise because you're not sure if you can ride there or not, or things like that. There are benefits to both. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about what are other things that might save your life. So maybe you don't want to spend $1,000 on an exhaust system, because as I look around, I mean, you know, for this FZ, the cheapest exhaust you can get is really like about 400 bucks, and that's like a Delkovic. But if you're looking for an Akrapovic or a like M4 or something like that, you're spending, you know, probably more like $1,000 to get a full system. So I was thinking, if loud pipes do save lives, hypothetically, if that is a benefit or even a fringe benefit of having a louder pipe, what else might save your life that's cheaper? And so the first thing that comes to mind is a horn, because these horns on motorcycles are so dinky, it is pretty much useless. I don't know anyone that's first reaction is to go to their horn if someone pulls out in front of them or something like that. I think most people's first reaction is to just try to mitigate the situation through steering or braking or something else, where I don't think the horn is really, you know, that useful on motorcycles. Maybe if you're in a city where you're going lower speed and stuff, but in a lot of places where I ride around the US, if you're on a highway or something like that, you're not going to hear the sound of this motorcycle horn coming through the glass of your car window with all the wind noise and road noise from tires and stuff going down the highway. It's just not going to happen. So, you know, I think this is more common probably on big cruisers to see like the train horns and stuff like that. That's one. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of fitting aftermarket horns because it's just not a reflex I have, and it's not something I'm going to go to all of my bikes and retrofit it on. So, you know, horn is a possibility, but not a very good one. And then another one, and probably one that's more of my favorite, is lights. So nowadays cars have daytime running lights. Like, I think all Toyotas, a lot of Chevrolets, you know, you see all these, like, either they have the daytime running lights or they have the little LED strips. But lights for visibility are a big deal. And so I just think, you know, motorcycle headlights like this one on the FZ, it is one headlight. It technically has a second little bulb in there too, but it's really dinky. What are you doing? It has a second bulb in there, so there's technically two little lights in there, but it's pretty awful and it's not very good. And so lights are one of the things I think that are probably the biggest factor to help mitigate that. And so you can do this different ways, where you can get fog lights and accessory lights. You can get halo lights. Some people use the underglow. I don't personally, but I like accessory fog lights, because that way it helps break up the single headlight effect, right? So if you have lights spread further across the bike, it'll help with distinguishing you as being not just a car with one headlight out, or maybe a motorcycle, or who knows what you are. But it really helps people figure out what you actually are if you have multiple lights arranged around. And that's where, you know, like the BMW GSs really excel, I think, because I never see those that only have just the single like LED strip or headlight. Like they've always got multiple lights going on, and it's a good look, and it also helps them be more visible, stay safe. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a great thing all the way around. Helps you see better at night, helps other people see you. And that's part of the problem, right? Is if if you can't get people to see you and notice you, then at least you can notice them better. And also, if you're dealing with wildlife, it'll help illuminate them and see wildlife, deer, you know, anything that's, you know, crawling around on the road late at night. It'll help you see them, and that to me is a big benefit. So fog lights are one of my favorites. And if you're wondering, I'm going slow today because when I was in the parking lot after I got where I was going, I realized I had a nail in the tire. So I'm not here to lecture anyone about safety and what you should or should not be doing necessarily. You know, I know there's lots of people want to say like loud pipes save lives, and then people get critical of how much gear you wear and stuff because it's like safety consideration. You know, Ryan Fortnine in his video where he talked about this kind of stuff, I think he's right, where he's like, motorcycling really is a balance between pleasure and safety, where, you know, if you bubble wrap yourself and you wear too much gear, then you kind of ruin the fun of it. And so I just think it's a balancing act that you have to achieve. And, you know, I would not suggest riding home when you have a nail in your tire, but I forgot my flat kit, and so I'm just getting home because there's really no other option. Dealerships are closed on Sundays, and that's when I'm riding, so we're just gonna get it back home. It still has some tire pressure, but obviously not my favorite way to ride, so we're just gonna take it slow in the right lane. So anyway, that disclaimer aside, so that no one thinks I'm trying to preach to them, but one of the other things I really like for mitigating safety and making sure you're seen, right? Because that's what the whole thing about loud pipes is, that you're actually seen and noticed. I really like modulating tail lights. So if you haven't gotten the modulating tail light, highly recommend, or at least like a really bright LED. But if you have like a somewhat dim aftermarket or even stock tail light, highly recommend getting the modulator. And the modulator, I just mean like it flashes. So when I hit the brake lever, it flashes like 3 times, or it keeps flashing or something like that. And I see some where the lights just flicker on the rear the whole time you ride, and that blinking light I think is really good for getting people's attention, where it's like a really dim flickering maybe, or it's just solid when you're riding, but then when you go on the brakes, it actually is gonna start flashing brightly. And so I think that's super good. I know sometimes when I have to make a right turn off like a decently fast or like high speed limit road, I get sort of nervous, like, oh, are people gonna see me rear end me? So that's one of my favorite things. And then also just mirrors, like being able to see your own surroundings, I think are huge. Like when I come up to a red light, can I check people are actually stopping behind me? And I don't have mirrors on all my bikes, but the bikes that spend a lot of time on the road and rather than the racetrack or the trail, I tend to keep mirrors on. And so it's just, you know, one extra thing that helps you kind of be aware of your surroundings, because if other people aren't going to be aware of their surroundings, and they aren't, right? That's the fear, is car drivers suck at driving cars and they suck at putting down their phone, and, you know, they're not very good at paying attention all the time. Then that's the consideration, right? If they're not going to pay attention to you, and if every car driver is super different, where some are, you know, trying to kill the streets and go super fast, and some are, you know, just playing on their phones, some are using the Tesla autopilot feature, right? Everyone's totally different, and it's like, well, how are you supposed to predict everyone's difference? And it's like, well, the best way is just that you pay more attention and you have things like mirrors. You have, you know, I turn the music down when I ride usually. Sometimes I blast it, but like especially if I'm in heavy traffic or you know, things where it's like stuff's not just cruising, I'm gonna be more paying attention and more aware. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Just, you know, I was like, this is such a silly argument to me, because there's so many other things that can mitigate this. And you know, you look at cars, and this argument hasn't existed in cars ever. The manufacturers are saying like, we need to make our exhaust systems louder, stuff like that, for safety. You know, their safety is more lights, daytime running lights, better like illumination, stuff like that. So, you know, think about not using smoked, you know, glass over your lenses, or smoke, like, you know, lenses over your turn signals and brakes and stuff, especially if you're don't have that bright of an LED underneath. So anyway, just a couple of my thoughts on this topic. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm not trying to start an argument, but just curious to hear what you think. Alright, anyway, you guys have a good rest of your day. Ride safe.